We've been around as an international organisation now for about a year. Before that, an organisation very similar in purpose but different in character had been created by the Korean government for a couple of years. So we're building on the work done by that organisation in our new form now. We have 20 members and they come from all parts of the world. They represent the entire development spectrum. And we're very pleased to have such diversity because it helps all of us collectively and individually to learn more about what works and what doesn't work on the green growth pathway. For us, the story begins with growth. It's about development, but the way we work is to respond to requests from governments that are interested in growth but don't want to grow in the same way that has brought us the sorts of problems we face, most notably climate change, of course, as we see around us here at the COP. The way to a pathway that's compatible with the climate, with a climate that doesn't change in the way that we're now responding to, the way to that pathway for us is through analysis, essentially economic analysis, to look at the sorts of questions that Lord Stern, among others, drew attention to when he wrote his report. And so we look at the circumstances of the countries that ask for our assistance. We start with their aspirations, with their growth aspirations, with where they want to be in 10 or 15, 20 years. And we working back from that, we analyse the options for growth that brings them to those outcomes, but growth that's compatible with the climate. So we're working in about 20 countries. Some of the countries we're working in are not yet members, but we're very keen to see them become members and certainly are encouraging them to. Meanwhile, amongst our members, there's a consolidation of support and ownership, and I'm really pleased to say that Costa Rica, one of our original members, one of our founding members, is now moving towards ratification. That will strengthen our organisation. We understand that there are still a few other countries that haven't ratified, and we understand that they are following domestic processes which require time. That's not a bad thing because it's given us time to establish something of a track record of success. The countries, as they approach ratification now, like Costa Rica, they can look at what we've achieved in the work we've done in the 20 or so countries we're operating in, and it will give them, I think, a sense that we can be relevant to the needs of countries that aspire to growth, but a growth of a different sort from that growth that's brought us to where we are now.
What are the main barriers to low carbon growth do you see it at the moment? I know it's a fairly broad question covering 190 plus countries, so there's no sort of one thing, is there? But what do you sense are the most commonly cited ones when you talk to different countries?
You know, I think it's certainly true that every country faces its own barriers, and they derive from the economic circumstances of that country, because what green growth is about is change. It's finding a new paradigm for development, and when things change, there are always going to be those who benefit from the change immediately and those who immediately don't benefit or maybe suffer from the change. So there's always tension with change, and that's a barrier everywhere, I think, is the capacity to deal with the tension between the benefits that accrue immediately and the adjustments that have to be made in order to mitigate the impacts of that change. And although that barrier manifests itself differently depending on the economic circumstances, who are the winners and who are the losers. The way through for us is always looking very carefully at the opportunities that present for low-cost change, for the most investable opportunities that will transform an economy, but transform it in the least dramatic fashion, so that those who need to make adjustments will have the time and can gather the capital to do it. Which really brings us to the second universal obstacle to change, which is at least it's in two dimensions. It's knowing exactly what to do. We know where we want to be, and we know the characteristics of the pathway that we want to create to get there. But what is it? How do we take the first steps down that pathway? Again, that's where we can provide some assistance, because we can provide very high quality, globally, very high quality analysis that helps governments choose the options that will get them started on the pathway. So I think those two general obstacles we find repeated in different ways. And while analysis, as I said, is very important in both cases, there is another dimension to the change that I think we also find very common. And that is that in order to bring about this change, we need to bring people together who normally, in the course of the day or the business week, don't actually talk to each other. They wouldn't think of talking to each other. Because when you're changing, you've got to do things in a different way, and that means you're going to be talking to people and dealing with people that you don't run across in your current set of activities. So identifying the people who can help one another who may not yet know it is another important part of the work we do. That generally is going to mean that we're reaching into the business community, the private sector, because they're the people who have the money, and once you figure out what you want to do and how you're going to do it, the next thing is where do you get the funding. So they're I think the three common obstacles that we try to help governments overcome.
Do you plan to offer any analysis to the Australian government, given their recent proclamations and growing antipathy towards anything related to green growth?
Australia is a member of GGGI. We're very pleased at that. They were a foundation member, and we're looking forward to their continuing support. Where our work takes place in developing countries, we have been recognised just this year by the OECD as an organisation that's eligible for development assistance. So we're dedicated to working in developing countries.
But as a proud Australian, have recent announcements disappointed you? What would be your thoughts on the government's current view on climate change?
I'm an international civil servant at this meeting, so it wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment about that.
Okay, final question. Just in terms of where we are ahead of 2015, you were involved in a national capacity with Australia at Copenhagen. Many people say that, I guess the whole process was still a bit raw at Copenhagen. Commitments were still coming in during the conference, and it just seemed to be a bit too much for everyone to process. How would you assess the UNFCCC's planning at this stage? Is it in a better place than 2009?
I think it's really difficult to know because it hasn't yet been tested. The next big test will be in Paris, and I think the task now is to build real momentum for an agreement in Paris which will make a difference. Since the Copenhagen meeting, the world has changed, and I think in many ways the the dynamic is now quite different from what it was. My interest, and my interest as the Director General of GGGI, is trying to build from an empirical base a broad understanding in the membership of the UNFCCC that responding to climate change makes sense, and that the more you do, the greater your return will be, that early movers will gain advantage, that it's inevitable that the change is coming, and the wise governments will prepare their economies for that change so that they can surf the wave rather than be dumped by it. And I think we're beginning to show now in the work that we're doing that does make sense, that that countries can achieve growth at least as quickly and with much greater stability, much more in harmony with the environment and in a much more socially inclusive way. So there's good news that's coming from the bottom up. My expectation and my hope is that that will inform the top-down process that the UNFCCC represents, provide more confidence to negotiators that they can make agreements that are ambitious, and that those agreements in turn will reinforce the sort of work we're doing, that countries will see the future more clearly and be more confident and more ambitious for their own green growth than at present. So in other words, there can be a virtuous circle in which the sort of work we're doing, and there are a lot of other people doing similar work, will demonstrate to the negotiators that their task is not one that calls for holding back, but rather for grasping opportunities.